2, hearing the public regarding non-agenda items. We'll now call members of the public who have requested to address the governing board regarding items that are not on the agenda. Members of the public who would like to address the governing board regarding a non-agenda item must please submit a speaker slip at this time. We have a couple, and we'll just go take them in order. So first is Renee Sells, and the second will be concerned parent and safety.
Hello, I'm Renee Sells. Thank you to the President and the Board of Del Mar School District. I truly appreciate your time and attention to this very important matter. I really don't want to do this. I'm saddened to do this, but I have to do it with teachers and kids. As a newer mom, or first as a mom of the second and kindergartner, I love the school. I love the parents and the bonds we share, and especially for the teachers in the Spanish immersion program. They have been instrumental in my child's learning. As a newer mom, I have unfortunately heard of the retaliatory behavior of the school site administration. I have not experienced the extent of it until now, and I faced all of this minor experiences and now I understand what it is. The current situation at Ashley Falls is completely saddening and immoral. Last meeting, Ms. Lee and Mrs. Adams brought up the need for Spanish books from the library, and most importantly, a reading intervention program. If our administration would have simply called the other sub-school in our district, they would have found that they had reading books from the library and interventionists. I do want to thank the board for taking the book request seriously and taking action. It was appreciated by the teachers and will typically benefit the children. Unfortunately, there was a price to pay. Last week, we learned the first grade Spanish teacher, Summer Abrams, was forced to resign. She's an impactful and worthy dedicated teacher, and it's well known she did not want to resign. It is no coincidence that both Ms. Lee and Mrs. Adams' children are in her class. She is also the only Spanish teacher that is certified for specific reading intervention, which was brought up here last week. Why would the administration forcibly remove a teacher of that caliber, if only for retaliation? Furthermore, it was discovered this week that our amazing love library media specialist, Ms. Monserrate, was not in the library in a sub and taken her spot. If you look at the district's job posting 6 days ago, a library media specialist was posted. She was an advocate for the Spanish books and had the lead head funding for our year. Coincidence? No. In the words of my son, why would we let her go when she was just trying to get books for us? Will the children have access and receive valuable instruction from the library? What are the district and schools' plans for the library, Spanish books, and reading intervention program? This is not going away. Most of the Del Mar schools and parents understand what's going on. I know you will say this is all speculation, and I do understand the need for HR confidentiality. Talk to the staff. Forced resignations and removal of staff happen when they question administration. Parents and children are victims to this unacceptable behavior, and as a district board, if you do not take action, you are complicit in accepting of this. I challenge and encourage you to conduct an independent investigation of the staff of Ashley Falls to really understand what is going on. Under Section 4.1 of the DMUSD and Del Mar, California Teachers Association, it states that the district retains the right to determine the effects and impact of any action implementing the right to lay off, terminate, and discipline employees. Don't forget that in the same document, your vision statement states that you are committed to operating in a trustworthy relationship with mutual respect, sharing common goals with a continued focus on quality education for all children, and valuing honest, open communication. You can't force me to resign. You can't fire me. We can't change the past, but you can do the right thing. These people have livelihoods and families to take care of, and they don't need a hostile work environment to. Do it for the kids, because at the end of the day, the only thing that was accomplished with these actions was hurting the kids, nothing else. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to start with a quote here. The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. And this brings me to talk to you guys today about the SELF class that was approved by this very board in October of last year for students grades 1st through 3rd grade. And just to let you guys know about the extremely shocking treatment of children that is occurring on our campuses, or on our campus at Sage Canyon, through this class. Children are being held and injured in seclusion rooms inside their very classrooms. There are holes on the walls, patches on the walls. Children are clawing to get out of these seclusion rooms that they're being held in. And I'd like to just address, this is a PowerPoint presentation from the U.S. Department of Education titled Students with Disabilities and the Use of Restraints in Seclusion Rooms in K-12 Public Schools. So first I'll start with their definition. This is from the Office of Civil Rights. Seclusion refers to the involuntary confinement of a student alone in a room or area from which the student is physically prevented from leaving. The key message from this presentation is that in cases, the use of restraint and seclusion may result in unlawful discrimination against students with disabilities in violation of federal civil rights laws. Furthermore, I'm not going to do this whole document at the time, but the use of these seclusion rooms is denying our children access to faith, which by law they are required to receive. So you probably, as the board members, I know you approved the room. I don't think you approved the practices in these rooms, but I really just want to bring your attention to it. These are children that are in the care of people that we have entrusted to care for our children. They've been hired to care for our children, and you have been elected to care for our children. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have a district, we'll directly follow up with you on those recommendations. 5.2, board report from Del Mar California Teachers Association with Jay's Burton.
Good evening, President Monk, members of the board, members of the cabinet. As always, thank you guys very much for all the hard work that you guys do. As you are aware, we finished our conferences last week. I love that week personally. Second time around, I feel as a teacher is a little easier. You already know parents. And I think it's good for families to see that. I don't want to steal any Jonathan thunder, but we had our city at CDM. I love it. You know, just being able to see the teachers and the kids, everybody running around together, walking, talking. It's just a really good vibe overall, which is really fun to see. And then, you know, I was just thinking historically today, and I was reflecting on my kids' school in Oceanside. Like, I think our first year at Carmel Del Mar, the goal was $20,000, and that was a big ask. And I think we're asking 120. I think that's what we're asking for, and we'll probably get it, which is just phenomenal for this community to do that. And we as teachers and staff definitely appreciate all the work because of the programs and all that other good stuff. So thank you for that. Moving forward, we're starting in on the bargaining process as we move forward. We put out a survey, it should be going out tonight to our teachers, just how do we want to make things better for us and as teachers and for the kids and all that other good stuff. So you'll get to, in case you missed Kevin, he'll be here next month, introducing some things for that department. And then moving forward, to at our staff meeting, we got to have Chris yesterday at our staff meeting at CDM. I don't know exactly what the other staff meetings look like, but he walked into, it wasn't a hot mess. It was actually just alive. Everybody talking. It was hard for Frankie, our principal, even to get because we love each other at our site. And I hope that's true for all the sites. But just thank you to the district. You can see on the district efforts on the strategic plan, Destination 2028, with just in response to that, lever two, responsive and caring culture. That was seen. I see it as climate, but I also see it as just us, everybody getting together. What is it like for us? So what did we do yesterday? Why was Chris there? Usually I was thinking, oh, why is Chris there? Because I'm usually, as president, I usually have a little, I'm privy to a little more information, like what's going on. And he's got this little blue basket thing. What's going on? So long story short, looking back about 12 years ago or so, we used to always have these little, at the beginning of the school year, where teachers were recognized for 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years, and things like that. And the year that I was at 10 years, they didn't do it. I was like, oh man, they didn't. But it's back. It was back yesterday. So Chris started handing out awards for 5 years, 10 years, 15. And I got my 20, which is here. I think I'm at 22 years. I'm not exactly sure. So that was cool to see the depth of how much experience we have, not only at our site, but all around the room. The one thing I did really appreciate with that is you also included the classified staff. And I'm not sure if that was like that in the past or not, but I thought that was very telling to include those folks as well, because at our site especially, they're a huge part of our backbone, the classified staff. So definitely appreciated that, like especially David Skinner, who's retiring after 30 years, and then Ms. Hoffman, who has 30 years experience too, to receive that little 20 year, or hers was 30, mine's only 20. I'll give it. Thank you very much.
We're at 5.3, we're report from the Del Mar Schools Educational Foundation. President Wilbrecht.
evening, members of the board, President Mock, Superintendent Clerk, and members of the cabinet. I don't have much to tell you right now other than Jogathon is on, as it says there on the slide. It's an exciting time. We're finally here. Just a couple points. This year, we've spread the Jogathon out over a few different weeks that schools are doing their Jogathon, but generally, this is the Jogathon season for this month before spring break. And each school is scheduled there so it doesn't conflict with their sixth grade camp. So it's a little more spread out than the past, but it's a lot of great, we still have all the energy that we've had in the past in terms of all the organizing that we've coordinated across the school. So we're trying to maintain that with a little flexibility this year. So I think it's great. Some schools have already had them. Some schools will have them at the end of the month, so we still have a little ways to go to get all the Jogathons happening. But it's so wonderful because this is the time kids love the most in terms of DMSCF. This is the really, where we're volunteers and the teachers, the principals, the parents really see something that has direct impact on the kids where they're feeling excited. So it's really great that we've had this tradition of doing something so tangible for the kids to really feel something fun, feel something exciting, but also contribute to their creative spirit that's contributing to the school. So, of course, to make it exciting, we do have prizes that we help incentivize giving. And this year, I just wanted to report, by starting a little later in the year, we've had the benefit of having more time to collect more gifts from our businesses. I just want to say we've been having great support from local businesses to try to create something that's exciting for the kids. And then, just to give you an update of where we are so far. We're just beginning. We've had some Jogathons, we still have a few to go. But as I had been reporting to you in the past, we've gotten already about half of our funds raised towards the annual goal prior to Jogathon. And now the money's starting to come in, so now we're, hopefully we'll get the rest of the way later by the end of the Jogathon season. But we're at $933,000, which means we're already at 7 full-time teachers funded out of the 10.5 goal. So that's really exciting. I always like to point out the employee matching. I just think it's phenomenal that there are employees who are going to the trouble of letting their companies know about this opportunity, and that they're the companies that want to support their employees in this way. So that's a significant chunk of money right there that doesn't come out of our parents' pockets directly. It comes out of the support of their employers. So that's fantastic. And the average gift amount is $877. Now that's not per child, it's just the average, but a family average gift is $877. So that's pretty impressive to think about. So a lot of gratitude that we have right now and a lot of fun going on. So that's it.
Yeah. Just a quick question, Will.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, thanks for all this great work, and the Jogathon season certainly is very fun. Just curious, in the past there was kind of a end of year push in April for the campaign. Is that now encompassed within Jogathon, or is there still kind of like that third wave of outreach that you're doing?
So this is the first time we've pushed Jogathon further back this late in the year. And I just want to put it aside, we're going to evaluate and see whether this worked or not, or whether we should go back to an earlier start to the year. So we're going to look at the pros and cons. So we haven't made a decision that we're not going to do a Closing the Gap campaign, but I'll just tell you how it's been done in the past. In the past, we've had some schools that have gone more than beyond their fundraising goal. So we've left it up to, now we've only had a few schools that haven't reached their goal have the option of doing a Close the Gap campaign. So if the school reaches their annual fundraising goal, then they don't have to do a Close the Gap campaign. So hopefully, we won't have any Close the Gap campaigns at the end of the year. That's what we're hoping for, so we'll see. Yeah, any other questions? Gosh, first time I've had a question in a whole year. And now my term's been wait 2 years, right? My term is ending. Get them out before I leave.
Thank you so much, Will. Appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you to you and the foundation.
Sure.
Moving on to 5.5, board reports from the governing board members. We'll just go down the road. Apparently, Alan is in a different seat today.
Hi, good evening. I have nothing to report this evening.
Well, I chaired the North City West Facilities Financing Board meeting, and I'm happy to report the last payment of about $220,000 is coming our way from them. Unfortunately, it's the last of the monies that will be paid out. The remainder of the time that organization will be in places to pay down the debts that are owed for the bonds. But we're happy that we were able to garner some money from that whole situation and find that it has been helpful in the district. I have nothing further.
All those in favor? Aye. Sound good? Motion to approve the minutes for the February 14, 2024 regular meeting passes, 4 with an extension from Katherine. 6, consent agenda.
Before we move to consent, I have no internet access, so I can't open any documents linked to the agenda. I'm not sure why. It's not
Sam, are you able to help with that?
looking at the right helpful person. I need to log in first. I tried restarting.
Catherine, do you want to take mine for now? Because I have it open to the board and then look onto it. Sure.
Okay.
You just keep going. Here.
Is this a meeting?
Okay.
Yeah.
Troubleshoot one.
You just
I'm going to look over protection.
Yeah, Katherine, do you want to just look, or do you want to take like a 5-minute break or something? So we
No,
can...
I don't want to take a break.
Okay, okay, good. All right, let's move on. 6 consent agenda, 6.1, 6.11. Does anybody have questions or want to pull out anything to vote on separately?
Yes. 6.2.
6.2.
Okay.
6.7.
6.7.
6.8.
6.8. That's it. Okay. All right, so can we vote on everything minus 6.2, 6.7, 6.8? Is there a motion to approve those items?
So,
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. All items minus 6.2, 6.7, 6.8 passes unanimously. And we'll start with 6.2. Do you want to vote on separately, or do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions other than I'd like to see the payees on the warrants listed.
Is there a motion to approve 6.2?
I'll approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Motion passes 4-1. And we'll go to 6.7. Do we have questions?
Yeah, just if, we could get kind of more of a bigger picture on what this item is and what we're using the money for.
So, in last year's budget, previous to last year's budget, all districts got a flat fee for transportation, and so it was far, far less than you would get for any transportation expenses. Last year, the budget was approved that districts would be reimbursed up to 60% minus what you'd already been given from the state for whatever you spent on transportation. So last year, we spent our money on transportation. The transportation funds that we used were for Delmar Hills, Delmar Heights with students off campus and special education. And then we had to receive the 60% of those funds in reimbursement. We had to come up with a transportation plan. So we brought this to the board last year in March. The board approved it, and so we received the 60% of what we spent last year in this year's revenue. And then again, we're doing the same thing. So really now that it's already been done and there's an approved plan, we just need the board to approve and update the plan on an annual basis. In the end, the only way to expand transportation is to front all the money of your expansion, and then you'll only get a 60% reimbursement of whatever you're using. The upside is we are getting 60% of it rather than getting a like $60,000 each year, when we're spending $600,000, $700,000, $1 million this year on it. So we will get a lot more money back for it, and it will be less of an impact to the general fund, but we still will have a 40% impact on what we spend on transportation.
So these are funds that we've already spent, and this is just approving that we're receiving the 60% reimbursement?
This is approving the plan, and so
Is this for this school year?
So it is approving the plan for how we are going to use our transportation funds. So we're talking about this year and next year. So we'll get reimbursed next year for this year's funds. And then we're, in the plan, we note that we are planning to continue to provide service to students who are off-site for a school modernization or rebuild. In this case, next year it will be Delmar Hills. And students who have been determined through their IEP to need busing or transportation services.
And we're just basing the numbers for the next year off of what we've been already spending?
Correct, and it's based on the contract that we have with San Marcos Unified for that, and then the money that we're spending. So it's an estimate. They'll do the actuals, and we'll get 60% of the actual expenditures that we use for transportation.
Okay, thank you.
I actually was kind of curious about something on that one too. It looks like to me that it's expected to spend $1.25 million on it for this year, and then last year we received $340 something for reimbursement. Are expenses increasing? Like, is our transportation is a significant
Costs have increased, and so if you may remember last year and in previous years, we had contracted with a company called STA. STA, before this school year, told us in the summer that they would no longer be able to serve us. So they were having trouble with bus drivers and providing the service. We were able to work with San Marcos Unified, who was able to provide us busing. It's cost a little bit more than it did, but we don't have any other options that can provide us the service we need. And they have been a good partner throughout the course of the year. They're not raising pricing for next year. So when you look at that, $1.25 million, that's what we expect to spend this year, and then be reimbursed upon for next year. Next year, we expect a similar budget for transportation that we have this year.
But it's partnering with it's another school district.
Correct.
And is that primarily going to be used for the Delmar Hills? I think you mentioned that already.
Primarily Delmar Hills to Ashley Falls, but we also have special education routes to students who, per their IEP, are at a program that is only served at a school outside of their school area. And so if it's in their IEP that they have transportation services we provided, some are through San Marcos Unified, some are some small other services, but all in all, we use all those costs, and those costs are what we put forward to the state for the reimbursement for the 60%.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve 6.7?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. And 6.8, is there any questions or?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
So Allison, I see that 6 staff members. What type of staff are you planning to send?
Sure, so we're planning on sending a mix of administrators and school site staff to this professional development.
Thanks. And I should note that I actually had a couple of thank you emails from staff last month. We sent 2 of our medical professionals to a conference, and I know from personal experience and also my wife's experience that when you can go to a conference and learn something new but also meet your mandatory continuing education requirements, you sort of get a 2-4. And so I think it's great that they went, appreciated it, and gave good feedback on that.
Any other questions? Again, is there a motion to approve 6.8?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Motion passes 4-1.
Good evening, President Monk, members of the board, Dr. McClure, and Ms. Haskell. Last year, our colleagues presented to the board about specialized academic instruction to support students with IEPs, and they described the continuum of services provided in our specialized programs and our learning lab. For the purpose of this presentation, we are going to specifically discuss the methodology of co-teaching and how it's currently implemented in DMUSD. To begin, I think it's important that we have a shared definition of co-teaching. This quote is from Jackie Thousand and Richard Villa, two experts on co-teaching that we have collaborated with over the past few years. It defines co-teaching as two or more people sharing responsibility for teaching all of the students assigned to a classroom. It involves the distribution of responsibility among people for planning, differentiating instruction, and monitoring progress for a classroom of students. We are currently implementing co-teaching as an instructional model to support inclusion in the Del Mar Union School District to meet the needs of all the students in the room, including students with an individualized education plan. So continuing to develop and implement a plan to increase the use of co-teaching strategies and support to increase inclusive practices in general education classrooms was a priority in our District Design 2022, and it continues to be a priority action in Destination 2028. So based on those priority actions, we developed a co-teaching professional learning and implementation plan, which began back in 2019. During the 2019-2020 school year, DMUSD partnered with experts Jackie Thousand and Richard Villa to pilot co-teaching at 3 of our school sites. Teachers and site administration participated in professional learning, including an overview of co-teaching and the implementation of coaching cycles. During the 2020-2021 school year, we were limited in moving forward with full co-teaching implementation due to the post-COVID classroom restrictions that were in place. But we shifted our focus to continuing to learn more about co-teaching and the effective implementation of co-teaching, and spent time consulting with Jackie Thousand and Richard Villa to develop a rich professional learning series to implement with our teachers in the years to follow. In addition, that year, we also spent some time training our certificated DMUSD staff. They all engaged in professional learning centered around learning about the co-teaching approaches. And all of our site and district administration also participated in co-teaching coaching trainings in order to be able to support our co-teachers in the future. So really, we are about 3 years of implementation at our school sites. If you take a look at 2021, 2022, when we had 8 school sites, that was our first full year of implementation, and then we know, of course, we opened Civic Sky, and so we've had 2 years between 2022 and this year of full implementation at all 4 school sites. And we've really expanded the co-teaching to all the school sites and provided that professional learning and have focused our energy in the upper grades. So we're going to go a little bit into how we are implementing co-teaching, because it is a methodology that can be used in a variety of different ways. So we implement co-teaching by partnering together a general education teacher and an education specialist. They prioritize instructional blocks of time to collaboratively teach students in an identified content area within the general education classroom environment. This partnership brings together a Master of Content Knowledge, which is our general education teacher, and Master of Student Access, which is our education specialist.
Our learning labs provide special education services to our students that are able to access core content instruction within the general education classroom. Our students might utilize these services in a learning lab setting, or they might utilize these services within a general education classroom setting through a variety of instructional practices, one of which might be co-teaching. These services and placements are determined by our IEP team through a data-driven process. And providing the specialized academic instruction through a co-teaching model does require intensive collaboration and co-planning of lessons prior to any type of implementation. Through the preparation and planning of lessons, our general education teachers and our special education teachers work to design meaningful instruction, allowing our students to remain in the general into one of our general education classrooms where co-teaching is being implemented, you would see a collaborative partnership between two educators. This partnership is strengthened through co-planning as well as communication. Together, our teachers utilize a variety of instructional approaches, which might include whole group instruction, small group instruction, or regrouping of students, allowing both teachers to be seen as teachers within that classroom environment. These co-teaching instructional approaches are called supportive, parallel, complementary, and teaming. Supportive co-teaching allows one teacher to take the lead within the classroom, and a second teacher comes in to help support within the classroom setting, navigating and allowing access to students as needed. Parallel co-teaching allows our teachers to work with a variety of groups of students within the classroom environment. Complementary co-teaching allows one teacher to take the lead, typically in whole group instruction, while the second teacher helps to enhance that instruction by bringing in other tools to allow student access. That may be done by providing additional visual aids or providing note-taking. And then there's team teaching, and when teams are team teaching, it allows both instructors or both teachers to move fluidly between lessons. We have seen the impact of co-teaching here at Del Mar Union School District to strengthen our inclusive practices while also providing support within our general education classroom environment, which ultimately enhances our collaboration for both our students and our staff. And as a district, we're really excited to continue supporting the implementation of co-teaching as it relates to our priority actions. That's all we have, so if you have any questions for us, we'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. So did you say it's you're implementing co-teaching on 4 campuses right now, 4 sites?
All nine.
All 9, okay.
All nine.
And then, so when you refer to ed specialists, are those special ed credential teachers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there are. But all of our education specialists that are full-time at the school site, are trained in co-teaching that are working on.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we do it at high school, so I know it's beneficial. I'm sure it's working in the elementary school classrooms. It's always, I'm not gonna say always, I don't want to say always about anything, but oftentimes it's better to have a couple more hands to be able to answer questions and give support, especially if you have the expertise of a special ed credential teacher in there, so. Thanks.
So great progress on getting to all the school sites. If we were to visit those sites, how many classrooms would we see this co-teaching on average? What grade levels would we typically see?
We'll take turns. It really depends on the campus and the students and what each individual student's IEP states is required for them to access the learning. That it's being utilized at all of our campuses, typically in grades 4 through 6 are the grades that that have the vast majority of the students that utilize co-teaching as a methodology.
And our ed specialists vary between having 2 to 3 partnerships within that span. So it's also dependent upon where the students, what grade level the students are that require that type of instructional methodology. So you would see it most of the time in 4 through 6, sometimes in 3rd grade.
Now, if I go back to your timeline from 2019.
Yes.
So who was pioneering this? Who was on the local team doing this?
So the 3 school sites were Torrey Hills, Sage Canyon, and Ocean Air. Back at that time, I was actually the principal at Torrey Hills, and then I took on co-teaching as a project after that. So I've been with it since the beginning. And Allison Fieberg was one of the principals at the time, and was it Ryan? Yeah, Ryan as well. So we started out with those 3 administrators, but we also had Jenny Hutt and Nadine were trained, and a few of our ed specialists and some gen ed teachers on that site.
So thanks for doing that from the beginning, and congratulations on the progress we're seeing today.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have no question. So what would you say the ratio of students who have IEPs in the classroom to the ed specialist on average is?
It depends. We try to keep it within the typical range of our percentage of students with IEPs in general. But it depends on the makeup of how many students within that grade level have IEPs and who need that type of support or access.
Okay. And then, so we have 2 SLIP programs. So do you have bilingual ed specialists yet?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Do you have any bilingual ed specialists currently?
We don't have any bilingual ed specialists at this time, no.
Okay.
So maybe if I can just follow up, as the SLIP program does evolve, and I see that it's doing that rather well, and maybe, I don't need the answer tonight, but I would be curious, Jenny, to know how does that overlap, Allison, with SLIP and special ed? Well, if we think ahead a couple years, what does that look like?
Yeah, I agree. That would be good to know how that's going to unfold in the future. And then I just want to say thank you. This is so exciting to think that you have this model that's unfolded where now you just have, it seems like, the maximum flexibility to meet kids where they are. And if you have 2 teachers, that just has to increase effectiveness, but only if you've planned and figured out how to work together ahead of time. And I know how much work goes on behind the scenes to make that happen. So it's very exciting, and thank you for leading this effort.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Let's see. I believe we are at 8.1, board report cybersecurity update. With St. Hendrick. He's busy fixing laptops. But he'll do double duty now.
Go, Chris.
What presentation are we doing? That's mine. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent McClure, and Cabinet. Tonight I'll provide you a follow-up to the September presentation we did about cybersecurity. Protecting our digital assets guides our decision-making. The technology department has been busy evaluating systems and implementing solutions. And I look forward to sharing what we have been up to on the next slides. Cybersecurity awareness, network security, data protection, and a Google tune-up are the focus areas. First up is cybersecurity awareness. If you recall, I talked about these topics in September. I hope you remember. DMUSD will have an annual cybersecurity training module at the start of each school year. That'll be for every employee. This interactive module consists of 6 lessons that includes videos, flashcards, scenarios, examples, and a knowledge check. Phishing simulations are now active in our environment. The program provides an email template library and advanced metrics on end-user behavior. I'd like to add that when we first started this up, we sent 14 phishing messages to our test group, me and one of my other guys, and before one test email successfully went through. That just demonstrates the strength of our email filters. We had to keep tweaking it, even though these are really benign emails because they're fake phishing emails, just to educate our end users if they do click. So, but it was just some fine tuning, so that makes us feel better about what we have in place already. DMUSD will contract with a company to provide a security operations center, known as a SOC in the industry. So as you walk, when you go to another meeting with other presidents, say we have a SOC in Del Mar, they'll be impressed. We'll have around-the-clock threat monitoring for our entire technology infrastructure. The company's security analysts provide threat remediation. So if there actually is an event, we actually have someone that can come on and be in our system and start remediating immediately. DMUSD is also partnering with the company to complete an incident response plan that was already in progress. So I already started it from the September meeting, but we actually ended up doing a proof of concept with 3 different companies, and this is one of their options. So I said, well, it makes sense to, well, if you're going to be our partner, we're going to continue with the assessment or the incident response
and we can include everybody. And then another great feature is quarterly vulnerability assessments the company will provide. So we'll do it like every 3 months. They'll just scan the network, see if there's any holes, and once again, we'll remediate from there. We'll also be implementing a cloud monitoring service. This service will detect events that indicate unauthorized access to data and identify when it is improperly emailed or shared. It will detect behavior that indicates an account takeover and provide us the ability to remediate through policy enforcement. So if we see multiple logins or some other suspicious activity, you can actually just shut down the account. So, and that's all fine tuning on our side, but we can identify that as we go forward. And the service will identify third-party applications that appear in our environment and allow us to revoke access by policy or a simple click of a button. So, for example, there's some other applications or someone downloads. We have a canned list that you can't download, but if it's something new that comes on and it's not caught but it shows up, we can just go into the system and actually click and revoke that access. The last measure DMUSD is bringing forward is a Google for Education audit. This is extremely beneficial because the Google Admin Console has over 1,000 settings, and this will ensure there are no misconfigurations. The audit produces a comprehensive report that provides an analysis of core services to assess their operational efficiency and effectiveness. The service also provides a security snapshot highlighting our cybersecurity posture. The most useful feature of this audit is that it recommends industry best practices with details on how to implement changes. I've experienced with this audit in my previous district. I actually did 2 of them, and it was very useful protecting the Google environment there. And I've also implemented some of those, what I've learned in my previous district. It's already in place here in Delmar, but once again, I think this is very good practice. Before we end, I would like you to know the technology department is committed to securing the DMUSD environment, and cybersecurity is essential to protecting our digital assets. Cybersecurity is not a one-shot deal, but a continuous process, and will evolve with the changing threat landscape. So this is just going to continue. And once again, we'll have more solutions as we go forward. I'd like to thank the Board of Trustees and Cabinet for making cybersecurity a priority and trusting my leadership in this area. Additionally, some of my peers in other districts are not receiving the same direction from the Board of Trustees. So kudos to you. And at this time, I'll open up for comments or questions.
So I was listening on NPR, they were talking about the big hack in Minnesota, the one school district out there. I don't know if you were aware of that. And it's really, school districts house a lot of information and data.
Yes.
And they were saying that we kind of are like hoarders in that sense. Like we keep things maybe too long, or we don't have things organized appropriately. Is there something that we're doing on that front where we're deleting data that we don't need anymore and making sure that data is, appropriately organized? That's
So,
the first question.
back to the one where we're actually doing the cloud monitoring. So that's, we'll start there and then start crafting policies that to ensure all end users. So for example, one of the big targets is the DMCTA information system. That's something we're working on to get 2FA set up. Right now, all the administrators who actually have access to all that data, they already have 2FA set up. That's already been established. Because the idea is to get it for everyone. One of the things I have a policy already internally in my office, the person who's in charge of our SIS, any kind of data that's shared in there, it's always encrypted. So if it gets intercepted, it'll just be
So
it'll be jump nets.
or court orders, things like that, are all encrypted.
Yeah, exactly. That's where we're starting there, and eventually those are my long-term goals with the data sharing.
And then anything that we don't need to keep, are we purging that data?
Any data we don't need to keep.
Yeah, like let's say a student I don't know how far back we have to keep records of our students, but students from the 1990s, we don't have that anymore.
It's in our SIS, not purging. our data. You may need that. That's going
I don't know if
forward.
that's something that we have to keep or not.
Here we have to actually keep records.
Okay, for forever.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, that's pretty standard.
okay.
I know a lot of districts as well that actually, they're taking their stuff from hard copies and microfiche and then scanning them. They have to, if someone comes back and needs records, we can't say, you're gonna have it.
And then, so when students log on to their Clever accounts, that has no bearing on any of this if they're at home, or does it?
It does, because they'll be logging in through Clever and on
So, yeah,
their
so,
account. Yeah, their restrictions are much more tight than actual, what our employees have, our staff has. So for example, I was talking about how we can, if there's any kind of applications that show up that we can remediate accounts immediately. For our students, it's really locked down. So it's essentially only we get to approve what they can have access to.
but are they, when they log on at home, are they at risk for being, cyber attacked?
Of course, anybody's at risk. I mean, there's no guarantee, but yeah, I mean, they have access to their Google accounts, they have access to their Clever, it's web-based.
Sam, do they have the same protections at home that they do at school?
If they're logging in, yes, through our, with Delmark, yes, they do. Yeah, the same filtering applies and everything. As long as they're just logging in, if they're logging with their personal accounts on their personal device, we don't have any control or responsibility. Not certain responsibility, you just don't have that kind of visibility into their
Right.
personal accounts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So back to Catherine's point about the intrusion attempt in Minnesota, how often are you seeing these types of attempts in our district or when you talk to your peers around the area?
Obviously, I get bombarded with emails because obviously I have vendors trying to get us to buy the products, and obviously that's one of the big sales is talking about data breaches and so forth. The districts I worked in, we haven't had an experience, but I've had actually my former district where our students matriculating to their high school district, they did have a minor breach. They did remediate it as well. But yeah, like once again, we're being proactive instead of reactive, putting all these controls in place. We'll have a nice incident response plan. This will include cabinet members, how we can respond, what's the responsibility of the third party that we're contracting with. But all this is a hardening environment so that we don't ever have to go down that road. Yeah, I mean, I wish I could come up here and say, we're gonna be protected. We have 100%, I'd be lying to you,
You also didn't say that we had 10 attempts yesterday.
no.
Right. And then internally, you mentioned the phishing simulations. So are these tests emails that you would send to the user community and
Yes.
see how they react and how well they learn from the annual training?
Yes. Yeah, and actually, I've already built out a plan. I've already shared with cabinet. So we're, essentially, we're having it throughout the school year. And then eventually, if we have some brand users that maybe do fall for it, we'll have some more remediation options so we get educated.
So how are we doing? Are our users learning from their training and not clicking religions? Do you feel comfortable that people are learning and following your practices?
Yeah, I mean, so the most recent phishing simulation, we said how we had a couple of people that fell for it. It redirects them to a page where they actually would go give them different options, or not different options, but different directions, how to spot phishing around. Includes a video as well. The one good thing, we had MFA turned on, which we turned on last year. So this particular phishing one, they created their credentials. Even if someone actually got their credentials, they still won't be able to log in because they don't have 2FA. It's going to go to an app or to their phone. So that's, once again, MFA was really key in securing the environment here at Delmark. Thank you.
So you guys are using something, every morning I have to enter a code?
Yep.
Yeah, because you're doing that.
We did that last year.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually, I presented that in September. Board meeting, yeah, we have that turned on. Eventually, we want to make sure we have it for all members of our information system and for Google. But for our primary, for Microsoft, we have it in And I tell you, I tried for almost 6 years in my former district, and just telling no. I was here, less than a year, with support, and it went really smoothly.
Thank you so much for being proactive about this, Sam, and working and giving us this additional information. I mean, it's one of those things that when we're talking about school districts, you don't think about cybersecurity. It's not your typical school thing we're talking about, but without it, like, you can't function. I mean, and there are horror stories, like kind of what Alan's asking, like this has happened. I mean, that's kind of why I kind of brought it up in the first place. Like, they get shut down. The school districts completely are just shut down, they cannot operate. And to be proactive about it first, and kind of, you can't guarantee like everything, but I mean, we try our best, and we don't want to be held ransom at some point.
For sure.
And so this is, I mean, I really appreciate all the work that you've done on this, and it's great to thank you for reporting back to us.
Well, thank you. I know this is kind of dry stuff, but I'm actually overjoyed that I actually had to have this opportunity because, like I said, I recognize the importance of this. And once again, I appreciate the support from our cabinet, from the board of trustees. I talked to CTO last week, and he was jealous that I got a cybersecurity budget.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, thank you.
We appreciate all the work you're doing on this. It's important to us. Thank you.
All right.
And we are at 9, board reports, 919 board report facilities update with Carlos Alves.
Good evening, President Mock, board trustees, Dr. Clerk, Cabinet. It's a pleasure to give you guys the facilities update for March. So I'll be talking over the Del Mar Hills Academy Modernization Project and the Del Mar High School rebuild. So Del Mar Hills Academy, we're currently in DSA review and expect the DSA approval process to happen in April. And then at the April board meeting, we are expected to bring you guys to GMP for review and approval. And then we're still on track to start construction June, this summer. So school's out June 1st, mobilize the team and get the school ready for modernization. And then moving on to the Del Mar High School rebuild. As you know, we started last March, the construction. We are up to 130 workers on site daily. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. And the project is at 75% overall completion, so it's exciting to see the project nearing the end. Definitely seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Building A, your paint is ongoing, so all the drywall has been completed. Building C, the classroom building, the casework is being installed, the whiteboards have been installed, and they're continuing with some of the finishing touches, and then at the end we'll install carpet. Last week they were polishing some of the polished concrete to get those areas prepped. And then building M, the drywall has also been completed, and we're going to move on to painting. And then lastly is the lunch shelter, and the trellis steel has been installed, and I'll share with you some of those pictures on the next slide. Here we see a classroom in the upgrade with the casework installed. We see the whiteboard walls. The flooring is obviously not complete, no carpets installed yet. And then on the bottom right, you can see the lunch shelter right up against the NUR and the kitchen area. And that is the presentation for today. Any questions?
Will students be moved on to campus in May?
Not moved on to campus, no.
Okay.
We
There's
like to-
rumors in the community that kids are going to be back on there in May, so.
So not moved on, but students, we will have students on campus for promotion. We're hoping to have something like Dance Fest, looking at what could we do for that last week of school. So while moved on, I think Carlos and I here, we think moving into classrooms, we're not going to be able to do that fully, but to be able to have some activities on site and close out the year so our sixth graders especially have an opportunity to be a part of that campus before their sixth grade year ends.
Thank you.
So over the summer, we'll utilize the facility for some other purposes so that we could at least work out bugs, see that everything's working properly. Is there any plans for utilization over the summer?
Well, we will be moving in, like furniture, setting all the classrooms in place, and then we will We do have a conditioning agent which tests all the systems to make sure everything is working properly. And like anything else, the more you use it, then you find out some of the bugs that come out. But that is the part of the commissioning piece. So we will start that in May once all of the electricals up, all the lighting's up, the HVAC systems are up and running. So every system will get tested there.
And why will we learn, I don't want to put you on the spot, but when will we learn more about any plans for ceremonial type opening and inviting members from the community to celebrate the new opening?
So you'll be learning before the end of the school year. There's some thought around it. We're starting to hopefully think about putting things in place. By getting to this point, we have more sort of confidence in when is it done, because that's what we also like to see, and then being able to look at ribbon cutting and you're saying having Councilman Rokava and others invited, and be able to make sure our community can come, and just like we did with Pacific Sky, opening it up to the public so that we use some sort of a tour and just make it a special opportunity so that both members of the community and the students who aren't able to experience it and come back and be able to be a part of that again. So we don't have a date yet, but it's definitely something that's top of mind that we're working on this room. Thank you.
One more question. Will the fields and playgrounds be open over the course of the construction period, or at least over the summer for Delmar Hills? How do we envision the fields, playgrounds being affected? For Delmar Hills, beginning June, whatever day in June you guys started.
So we're going to be working with the contractor to give access to the Boys and Girls Club. So there'll be a portion of the field that will be sort of fenced off or to safely utilize the field during the summer, and then as we mobilize to do the demo and then start construction for the hills.
And so then we'll look at what potential access would that allow for the community. We also have to make sure that people aren't getting onto the construction site. We've had some issues at Delmar Heights, and we have some security that it calls the police, and so it's dealt with it. But we'll look at how that is handled too, especially with nights, weekends, those kind of things, making sure it's secure, but also what access can we provide.
Yeah, I think it's important for the community to know as soon as possible, because it's going to start in June, how this is going to change their access, because I know those fields are used all the time by a lot of people in that area, so it's going to be a big impact to not have that accessible.
Out of curiosity, at what point will the Heights fields be open to be used? I know that obviously depends on when the school's open, those kind of things, but when will those be accessible to the community?
So we expect to have the site completed in June, and then I'm expecting the fields to be open up for the community come July, August, right before school starts.
And I throw in just a little caveat of oftentimes with a grass field, we have to stay out there for a period of time. So there's just when can it get rolled in and it may be completed, but then we may have to say, but we need 4 weeks for it to establish or something like that. So just that one caveat.
There's playgrounds too, right?
There are, yeah.
So, any other questions? Great, thanks so much. 10.1, board review and approval, 2023-2024 second interim budget report. Chris Delhanty and Tiana Burke.
All right. Good evening, President Mott, members of the board, Kevin. This evening, we will be presenting on second interim and asking for approval. And with me is Tiana Burke, our Director of Fiscal Services. And so as we move into second interim, this is the point in the year where we have a good amount of data, and we're continuing to make some adjustments based on actuals at this point. So it's up through July 31st of this year that we are presenting on second interim. We're going to provide the vision and mission in the budget process. We'll talk about first interim versus second interim, give an overall summary of our general fund, and then look at the multi-year projection, and our looking ahead will be provided each of these updates. As we look at our vision and mission, it's always where we start, because this is the basis of our budgeting process. We focus on developing a budget that's going to impact the education of every one of our students, and that's why we also start editing those student pictures, because those are the people that we're really focusing on when we go through the budget. We've also included, we added a budget cycle, and so when we think about this, the budget, and it's interesting because it seems simple, just put it in the budget cycle, and then as Tiana and I were looking at it, every budget cycle has at least 2 years and sometimes 3 years, and we, to make it simple, we only have 2 years and they're covered by the 2 different colors. So the current year is in June, the board adopts the budget. And then first interim is provided in December with actuals up to October 31st. And then in January, we have next year's budget the governor is putting out, which the governor's put out, and there's been a lot of talk about what the governor's budget looks like. Right now, we're doing second interim. And then in May, the governor will have the May revise, which is the big update to his budget that leads to that last, say, 4 to 6 weeks where the governor and the legislature are kind of scrambling together to come up with the final budget. And then we'll bring to the board next year's budget in June. And then finally, back to this year, we have unaudited actuals where we come through, we close the books, and we have the actuals pre-audit in September. And so the budget cycle really is always really looking at 2 years that are kind of intermingled. But right now, we're looking at this year's budget, we're looking at second interim, and we are also talking a little bit about next year's budget when we do looking ahead and we talk about what the governor is talking about. In our district, the budget process really is looking at our LCAP and our Destination 2028. Really intentionally allocating resources to impact high-quality teaching and learning, and I think this is what sets our district apart. And we have a focused strategic plan we have for years, and we focus our budget on achieving that strategic plan and making an impact on students. We also look to maintain a fiscally sound reserve and continue to proactively fiscally plan. And we are in somewhat uncertain economic times as a state. While our district is positioned really well as a base gate district, we need to be diligent in maintaining fiscally sound reserves and proactively planning because these are the times where there are the legislative analyst office and others are looking at can the state make cuts and how might those impact. They're not as big as cuts to other districts, but how might they impact our district, so we're making sure we're keeping an eye on that. And in the end, again, focusing on our students and making sure that we are planning ahead so that they have a successful future. So with that, I'll hand it over to Tiana.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening, President Ma, members of the board, and Dr. McClure. Tonight we'll be talking about in January, the board reviewed and approved first interim, so tonight we'll be talking about second interim and the budget adjustments for that. On the revenue side, at first interim, we had 24 million, and 74 million, apologies. And with budget adjustments at 1.2 million, our second interim report shows revenues at 75.3 million. Those revenues consist of a couple different things. The LCFF sources, we had an increase to our property tax. It was previously budgeted at 4%, and it's been increased to the 5% based on meetings with San Diego County tax assessor and some of the projections that they have there. In addition, we have other state revenues, our Proposition 28, the arts and music in schools, that came in as well and is being recorded at second interim. And then for other local revenues, we have an increase in interest, and that's based on our actuals through January 1st. And then as we take a look at the expenditure side, at first interim, we had 75 million in expenditures. And for second interim budget adjustments, we had a total of 1.9 million. And for second interim, we show a total of 76.9 million in expenditures. And in January, the board approved the AB 1200 salary increases. And also in November of last year, the board approved the increase in certificated substitute rate. And in addition, we had some operating expenses that we're recording. Previously, our CTO, Sam Plenbeck, spoke about the cybersecurity implementations, and so we created that budget to help support that. In addition to SDG&E rate increases that continue, we also had increases to the budget for our utilities related to our continued investment into our organic waste program. And as you know, our continued partnership with BCK as we rolled out at every single school site, the organic waste program. And then as we take a look at our ending fund balance, we have a unrestricted general fund balance, a balanced budget with a reserve percentage well over the 20% at 23.4%. And the restricted general fund balance shows us spending down those one-time monies that we received over the past couple of years.
Just a quick question, the reserve in the first interim was it 25.5?
I believe, we're gonna look at that in the multi-year. I
Thank you.
can push ahead if you'd like for that. I believe it was
I can do
24,
patient.
but we can take it. And then just, all of those adjustments and final numbers are, for revenue side, are here in chart form. And you'll see that the other state revenues at the 9.1%, that accounts for our Prop 28 monies that are coming in. And then for the expenditure side, same, accounting for those expenditure adjustments that were made for second interim and having our total salary and benefits at the 82.3%. And just as a reminder, our expenditures also they are increased at this time because we are spending down those one-time monies. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris for the multi-year.
So now we'll look at projections over the next 3 years with a focus on budgeting for students like this. As we look at our multi-year, we always base our multi-year projections on the School Services of California dartboard, which helps with projections. We are projecting property tax increases at 3% a year over the next 2 years. Our step and column, we annually budget a 2% increase, and we have the annual adjustments for STRS and PERS contributions. STRS will stay flat, but PERS will continue to increase. So if we look at the multi-year, we have total revenues at $75.3 million, moving to $76.9 million, and then $78.8 million in our final year. And our expenditures go from almost $77 million to almost $78 million to $78.5 million in our final fiscal year. And if we look at this, we've split this up because with the one-time funds, we wanted to be able to look at our unrestricted as well as our restricted. So we're going to have 3 slides on our multi-year. And we'll do our current year, which Tiana has already shown. So we look at our current year, we have our unrestricted beginning balance as of July 1 of this year. And we have an increase of just about $65,000 in our unrestricted. And so we have a little bit of an increase to our new fund balance with our reserve percentage of 23.4%. We also, as Tiana talked about, are spending down some of those unrestricted dollars, which are the one-time funds. And then we have, restricted dollars, which then leads to a combined negative to the ending fund balance. But I'd like to highlight the fact that our unrestricted fund is staying a positive. As we look at next year, the 24-25 year, we are budgeting for a $783,000 increase to the unrestricted general fund reserve, getting us to $18.8 million and a 24.1% unrestricted reserve percentage. You'll see we're spending down another $1.8 million in restricted funds, and then that leads to a combined reduction again in the ending fund. But going back to that unrestricted, it's actually saving more towards our unrestricted general fund reserve at about $783,000. And in the final year, we have an increase to our ending fund balance of $295,000. It ends our unrestricted reserve percentage at 24.3%. I'll also note that we are not showing the spending of our restricted dollars in the second out year because it's a more conservative way to look at it. So when we look at it this way, we aren't sure exactly, we're budgeting, and that's a projection, and there are always some adjustments that happen in next year. To be more conservative, we're not putting those in because they would offset general fund costs, and we will then be able to use some of those restricted dollars in the 25-26 school year that would actually offset unrestricted costs and increase likely that unrestricted reserve increase that we have on here. But we also wanted to make sure that we're looking at how much we spend next year with the programs that we have in place and then how much we have left, and we'll update that as we get into next fiscal year. So I don't think we're going to have the first interim on here. I can look that up for you though, the exact numbers. I'll do that now.
So getting back to the question about the percentage at first interim, it was 25.5%.
So looking ahead, we always are monitoring enrollment projections and staffing needs at this time of the year. We're in the midst of, we've finished a portion of our enrollment. We have enrollment that comes in over the course of the rest of the year. So looking at that enrollment and staffing, and that obviously is the biggest piece of our budget each year. STRS and PERS annually adjust, and we know that PERS is going to continue to increase over the next couple of years, so we keep an eye on that. There is the ability for the state to make an increase to STRS. It hasn't happened in the last couple of years. There aren't any indications that it will happen, but we monitor that as well. We are anticipating a math curriculum adoption next year, and that will be a full adoption, so that'll be a full curriculum. So that's why it's budgeted at $750,000. We're holding on to because it will be a K-6 or TK-6 adoption that we'll be looking at. The governor's proposed budget has state revenues continuing to move below expectations. This last the amount that came through was a little bit above, but not nearly enough to catch us back up to the previous revenue and tax receipts. And so we have potential for statewide education funding cuts, and the Legislative Analyst Office, which is a nonpartisan group that advises the legislature, has laid out kind of a smorgasbord of these are potential cuts. And so it is really an important time for us to be advocating. I appreciate GY, we were talking about the advocacy that you were a part of. Alan, you talked about collaborating and trying to get things done. And so we are very focused on that this spring. There are a couple of areas that would potentially affect districts like ours and could take potentially up to hundreds of thousands of dollars out of our budget. So next week I'll be in Sacramento with a group from CASBO, the Coalition for California Association of School Business Officials, and I'm participating in advocacy days with the group there. And so we'll be advocating. I know that Holly will be participating in Access Legislative Action Days in April. Holly and I will both be at SF Squared's April Day. So we're really putting a focus on this and being a part of it because collaboration is really important when you talk about advocacy too. And so we're one district with less than 4,000 students, but when we're a part of bigger organizations, CASBO has 30,000 members. And when you go into with a group of people and talk about how CASBO's 30,000 members believe this, and we have a say in what we're putting in front, it's much more powerful and it makes a difference. And so we're working to advocate along the lines of this budget. We've done this along the lines of funding for TK, and we'll continue to advocate for that. Statewide facilities funding, which we get reimbursements unless there's a statewide facilities bond, facilities funding. We aren't able to get reimbursements. There are a number of areas where we're advocating and we're working on the state level to try to support the interests of our districts. And so then just the general economic forecast, we'll be monitoring, looking ahead. Property tax increases are expected to slow. You notice that we put it at 5% this year, and that's based on the meeting that we had with our current assumptions for second interim. We are expecting 5% property tax, but looking to next year, we're assumptions of 3% and 3% for these amount of years. And that's because of the expected slow. With the interest rates where they are and the volume that we're seeing, volume is part of what it matters for districts too. Because when young people are holding onto a home that is assessed value at $500,000 and not selling it, the sale and putting it at $2.5 million makes a big impact on our property tax bill. So we monitor that, but we're going to be conservative with it, and if it comes in a little bit higher, we'll adjust that within our budgets to make sure that we're being as true as we can to it, but not over-expecting revenue in the budget. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions about the second interim, and we will be asking for approval.
So I appreciate you being conservative on those projections for property taxes, but I guess I'll ask you a what-if question. What if it's less than that? And hopefully it's not that trend. I did want to ask the question about the reserve because I did see a trend. So I go back to our December meeting, we saw 25.5 at the first interim. The year before we had 26.4, so 26.4, 25.5, 24.3. Now we're at 23. I guess the question is, if we continue at that glide slope for reserve going down, at what point do we pause and say we're getting close to a number that we are worried about?
So I have two things I would say. One is, depending on the interim budget you look at, you're going to have a different reserve percentage. So I don't know that it's going down. Our budget at the end of the year on audited actuals has typically been in that 23, 24%. So I think we look at the true, as opposed to a budget, a true number at the end of the year, we've been sort of in that range. Board direction has been to keep it above 20%. So we have taken that and we've moved forward with trying to keep it above, maintaining it above 20%. We've also heard loud and clear to keep the budget balanced. So we're looking at making sure that we can keep the budget balanced or continue to put money into the reserve over the multi-year, and that's what we're doing this year. So I wouldn't say that I have a concern, but personally, I would agree with the board that keeping it over 20% is an important place to be. And I think that having a strong reserve and being at that 23, 24, 25 range is not a bad place to be, because we're above the 20% and we have some flexibility if something were to happen with the state budget, where we'd be in a much better place than a district that wasn't looking at that.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you consult, you base your projections every year with school services in California, the dartboard, and where are they getting their numbers? And do you also reach out to the county, or is it just based off of school services?
So we get information from the County Office of Education. School Services is a statewide organization that provides information to the districts across the state. And so they're a highly well-regarded organization that provides this sort of data. Pretty much every district in the state relies on the School Services Board for the projections.
I'm just wondering if you make any other comparisons, or is it just the dartboard? I mean, and are they also, this is just for basic aid, right?
No, School Services is a statewide organization that works with all districts across the state and on business services and finance and HR.
Yeah, I know we work closely with them because we're basic aid.
So we work with Schools for Sound Finance, which is sort of a subsidiary that works under School Services. So they're kind of like a part of School Services that supports just the basic aid, whereas School Services is the umbrella, larger organization.
So in second interim, you guys have reached out and sat down with the county or been given more information, but that's not happening at first. I'm just like not understanding.
Yeah, actually, the county is a great resource for us, and not only do they approve our interim budgets, but all of our budget process, and the supporting documents or calculators that they provide are derived from school services, dartboard as well. So anything that is coming from the county is also reliant upon that school services dartboard.
And is the tax assessor involved in all of this, I'm assuming? Like the...
Yes, it's kind of like how I mentioned as far as the projection and for the property tax, it's really just, we're fortunate in our county that our tax assessor does meet with us once a year to kind of give us an update on what's going on in the county. So we had that meeting at the end of February, which allowed us to be able to budget that 1% increase in the property tax.
How much does that translate in dollars?
It's approximately $500,000, about 1%.
Any other questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve the second interim budget report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion to approve the 2023-24 second interim budget, please. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you. Moving to 11.1, board review, initial proposal for contract negotiations with the DMUSD with the California Teachers Association, 2024-2025. Mr. Stanley.
So good evening, President Mock, members of the board, and Dr. McCord. So currently we have a 3-year agreement with the Del Mar California Teachers Association that ends on June 30th, 2025. So under Government Code, Section 3547, the presentation and adoption of the district's proposal for contract negotiations is a 2-step process. So this evening, this item is presented as information only for initial review and public knowledge of the district's proposal for successor negotiations for the 2024-2025 school year. Excuse me. So the district's initial proposal will then once again be presented at next month's meeting, at the April 17th board meeting, for a public hearing and then for the final adoption and approval by the board. After the April 17th board meeting, then parties can begin negotiations for a full successor agreement for the 2024-2025 school year. And then also it's important to note that we will also then present at next month's board meeting DMCTA's initial proposal on the agenda, which will then include additional articles, as Jason referenced, that DMCTA has identified. So again, so for tonight, this item is for information only for initial review.
Great, thank you. And then we are at our closing minutes. 12.1, board review, reminder of upcoming DMSD events. 12.2, board review, reminder of upcoming DMSDF and school PTA events. 10.3, board review, preliminary items for the April 2024 regular board meeting.
I have a report on the SLIP program, which would include, absolutely. Number one, bilingual intervention and resource supports. Number two, an articulation agreement timeline with San Diego Unified High School District. Number three, community building efforts within the school site and between the two school sites. Any engagement opportunities or feedback end of year survey opportunities for SLIP families. Books and materials like the new math curriculum, bilingual books, materials, and math curriculum updates. And then another item I would like to be informed on is when will TK enrollment open? And the last question I'd like addressed is when will the next update be given to Hills, the Hills community? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 12.4, adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn the meeting passes. The meeting is adjourned at 7:37 p.m. Thank you, everyone.